Next, I'd like to introduce our esteemed editor to give remarks about the current state of the magazine and our vision for the future. Robert W. Mary is a longtime Washington journalist and publishing executive. He spent 12 years as a political reporter for the Wall Street Journal and 22 years as an executive at Congressional Quarterly Incorporated, including 12 years as CEO. After CQ was sold to The Economist of London, he served as editor of the National Interest before retiring to Washington State to write books. He was lured from retirement in 2016 to become the editor of the American Conservative. Mary has produced 5 volumes on American history and foreign policy, including his most recent, President McKinley, Architect of the American Century, released in 2017 by Simon & Schuster. Under Bob's leadership, the American Conservative has experienced tremendous growth as he strategically added 2 new editorial initiatives with accompanying events: the Crony Capitalism Initiative, whose second annual conference will take place here in DC on June 21st, and the Criminal Justice Reform Initiative. He is one of our most popular writers by far, in part because his writing is steeped in the history and philosophy of Western thought, and he has an uncanny ability to bring historical heroes and villains to life. While we will certainly miss Bob when he retires as editor this June, we look forward to having him as a regular contributor to the magazine and a member of our board of directors for years to come. Please join me in welcoming Bob Mary to the stage, as well as our 2 executive editors, Kelly Vlahos and Louis McCrary, who will be presenting Bob with an award for his distinguished service to the magazine.
Thank you. That's very, very nice to get an award from a staff such as this. It's a tremendous staff. Makes my job very, very easy, and makes it harder for me to return once again, as I once did, to my native Pacific Northwest. I have to say that when Scott and other members of the board of directors importuned me to return to Washington, D.C. from my retirement. I was coming back a lot, and take over the reins of the editorial department at TAC. Scott neglected to tell me that I was going to be joining a bunch of fascists. I might not have actually taken the job, but it occurs to me that Partisan Review, it lasted 70 years, I think, and then it died, and then we emerged. So this is our 15th anniversary. So we just got to hang on for another 55 years and a day so we can go beyond the Partisan Review, and that's what I'm hoping. So you get the sense that I haven't been TAC editor for a long time. I'm torn between Washington, D.C., where I get my excitement, and Washington State, where I get my serenity. And I won't be in the job much longer. But I have to say that my tenure became a kind of a revelation to me on what just a few people with a lot of heart and conviction can do when they have at their side truth, justice, and Johnny Burtka. Johnny, as you know, is our top business guy, and he has been our chief fundraiser. And I like to think that he kind of personifies the strategic concept that undergirds this enterprise. And what is that concept? It is that if we project a brand of conservatism that is distinct, well-reasoned, lively, respectful of our republic, then intelligent and concerned citizens of the right will step up to support our efforts. And Johnny has demonstrated in his indefatigable way, I can't say that word, that concept can actually work. Not least has he demonstrated it by getting all of you at these tables here tonight. So I have to say, in fact, as I looked earlier across this room at our good friends gathered here, I couldn't resist the thought that this is a special occasion for us. Not just a special occasion in terms of we all got dressed up and it's a beautiful room. This is my favorite room in Washington. But a pivotal moment. And you have made it so with your support and with the support of many others who couldn't be here, and still others perhaps that we haven't met yet in our own efforts, we like to think, in producing content that has resonance with our audience. So we're well positioned, I'm pleased to report, to pursue our mission well into the future. And what is that mission? It's to fight. It's to fight the zeitgeist that is seeking to marginalize our cultural heritage, to shut down open discourse at our universities, to keep open our borders, to upend delicate checks and balances designed to protect ourselves and our fellow citizens from arbitrary governmental activity, to rush into foreign lands seeking monsters to destroy, and to move us increasingly towards oligarchy. And we will fight. We will fight with our brains and our hearts and our keyboards and our printing presses and the web, and through argument that will be as cogent and trenchant as we can make it. But we have no illusions. When Bill Buckley addressed the National Convention of the Young Americans for Freedom 2 months before the 1964 election, he shocked many when he stated matter-of-factly that their hero, Barry Goldwater, was about to move into a crushing defeat. And he counseled his charges on that occasion. He said, the beginning of wisdom is to fear the Lord, but next in importance is to take stock of reality. And the reality that these people faced, he told them, was that conservatism shortly was going to be in very bad shape. Well, taking stock of reality today, we must acknowledge that the conservative movement, once again, is in very bad shape. It offers little in the way of a coherent national vision that can resonate. That's the key. It must resonate. Ronald Reagan did that. He not only had a vision of where to take America, but he managed to package it and to shape it into something that resonated with a large segment of the population. And therein lay his ability to get so many things done. He altered the political landscape of America. He transformed the economic debate of the country. He set in motion policies that led inevitably, ultimately, to the destruction of Russian Bolshevism, which only he, it seems, could envision. He generated abundant economic growth. He stepped up to the entitlement crisis of his time. And he, I might note, he got us into no debilitating wars, all of which rendered him, in my view, one of the two greatest presidents of the 20th century, along with FDR. And consider that he emerged just 16 years after that Goldwater debacle predicted just 2 months before by Bill Buckley in that speech to Young Americans for Freedom. So it's natural, I think, for many of us to look back on Reagan and the Reagan time as a golden age and to seek counsel or guidance in terms of helping us with our own latter-day travails. But I have to say no, he doesn't offer guidance for our time. It's true that he stood up for fundamental principles which we all still believe in and will continue to believe in: constitutionalism, small government, freedom of conscience, free markets, etc. But politics in a democracy ultimately must address the immediate and pressing problems and concerns of the people. It must speak to the fears and concerns and angers and dreams of ordinary folks in their everyday lives. Reagan did that in his own day, but that day is gone. Many of you may know that I have written on numerous occasions about what I call the crisis of the old order. the crisis that I believe we are in, a crisis that stems from the fact that the old order, the post-war order created by Franklin Roosevelt, has died, and nothing has replaced it. And the political establishment can't see it. That's always the way when a society or a world, a globe, which is happening in our own time, moves into a crisis of the old order, when the old order begins to crumble, when the status quo is no longer holding. And the reason they can't see it is because they are so invested in it. Much less can they craft any new era to replace the old one. And the result is that we have a nation today and a world in limbo. That's a dangerous and a scary situation. But what I want to say to you tonight here is that that also holds out great promise that something better could be in prospect. What is that? A brand of politics that can break the political deadlock born of status quo crisis. To create a governing philosophy that can be the underpinning of a governing coalition that can move the country into a new era of consensus, of tranquility and stability, or at least in relative terms. Think about it. What an opportunity that represents to craft that governing philosophy capable of capturing the imagination of a solid majority of Americans. As I say, at TAC, we have no illusions about where we reside in the wilderness at this moment. We have no illusions about the hostile forces that surround us, as they have since day one, it appears. But we believe at TAC, and we think you do too, that that governing philosophy is out there to be honed and shaped and serve as a pivot of the nation, pointing to a new and more judicious direction. So let's all of us here tonight come together in solemn solidarity in behalf of that hallowed project, to fight the good fight while crafting and honing and shaping and forming a brand of conservative politics that can capture the American spirit in sufficient magnitude to lead our country out of its deadlock crisis and into a new era consonant with the principles and ideals of our founders and our heritage. Thank you.